Good afternoon, family. Kurt Bragg here, coming to you with the first week of Reflect. And so we're going to be talking about this past message of Pastor Josue's powerful message. And didn't get any questions. So obviously he did a good job of explaining stuff, but unlike me, I have questions. So we're going to dive into some of the questions I had, and I've also prepared some answers for those, and just maybe get the ball rolling here on the Reflect. So once again, we're going to do this midweek after Sunday's messages, and we'll be putting this together and just basically giving you an overview of the message. So Pastor Josue had an awesome message on he had several key points that I want to highlight on, and a lot of it was around relationship, around our relationship with others, our relationship with God, and the importance of those relationships. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. Also, he talked about how sometimes God asks us to do things, and it's very uncomfortable. It seems weird at the time, and sometimes even obviously seems impossible. But sometimes it seems like that can't be God, and so we'll talk about that a little bit. And then, so that's kind of the difference, spiritual and natural. We get ideas. Most of the time, our ideas are centered around our passions and our our strengths, I should say, and sometimes God will work within those, and many times, but sometimes God will ask us to go beyond our strengths and beyond our abilities, and then the supernatural arrives, and that's one of the key points that Pastor Josue hit on was. Sometimes we're asked to do those type of things that seem impossible. And he also mentioned that a dream without a plan is just a wish. And, so we need to dream with God and continually asking Him about our dream and how to make that a plan. And so the important thing about that is, that was kind of the overview. The important thing about that is I want to dive back into relationship, because the two most important relationships that we have is our relationship with God and our relationship with others. But if our relationship with God isn't the most important relationship out of all relationships, then we're going to end up being less, and we're going to fall in a lot of these areas, even that Pastor Josue mentioned on Sunday with his message. So our relationship with God is the most important key component to this. So what was mentioned in the message was about Abraham taking Isaac up the hill, and how who would go up the hill with Abraham and Isaac. If you remember the story, Abraham asked his people that were with him to stay, and that the lad and I will continue on, and take him to the place where the sacrifice was to happen. And so it was important that just Abraham and Isaac continue on. And that is breathed, and that comes out of and spawns out of a relationship that Abraham had with God. So if your relationship with God is at optimal level, then you're going to know who can go up the mountain with you and who needs to stay back. Or maybe it's your relationship with that person is one that you can take to a certain level, but maybe not to all levels. And so our relationship with people, vitally important. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. However, our relationship with God is most important. And so we need people. God made us relationship type of people. And so it's important that we have people that can sow into our lives, and people that we sow into their lives. Not only do we want people that we can take to those places that God's called us to go to and it can cheer us on, but we also want to be those people that we can go with and cheer others on. So we want to have that type of relationship with others that is basically, as Pastor said, is reciprocating. It goes both ways. And reciprocity was a term that Pastor Josue introduced, which is, let me give you the definition of that because that's kind of goes right in the next part here. The practice of exchanging things with others for mutual benefit, especially privileges granted by one's country or organization to another. The community extends to start discussing on reciprocity for third countries. So, in short, it's not to take away from it, but it's really the law of sowing and reaping. It's the act of sowing into somebody's life. It's the act of somebody sowing into our life, and then reaping the benefits of that. And so, the reciprocating portion of a relationship, and that's very important. And the Bible talks about sowing and reaping. It talks about how it's important for us to plant in good soil. What we don't want to do is we don't want to assume that the seed's no good, and we don't want to go out and dig it up. We want to know by faith in our relationship with God that seed, that what we're working towards is going to come to a harvest. And so, you could be a farmer that plants good seed in good ground, but if you go out and dig it up the next day, it's not going to grow. There's not going to be any harvest. So it's important for us to not only abide in the plan of sowing and reaping, but also the process of the plan. So our relationship with God, our relationship with people. So those are key components that came from Sunday's message. And how much is in your account in that sowing and reaping? Are you low on being able to reap? Are you in need of a relationship that can help propel you to the next place, but yet your account's low? And that goes back to some time ago. Maybe you didn't sow, or maybe somebody hasn't done their job and reciprocated that back. They haven't done their part, because it's two-way. It has to be in a relationship, as any of you know, a relationship is a two-way street, and it's really that way with God, and it's that way with people. So I want to talk about a couple other things here. Pastor Josue mentioned about sometimes it's necessary to separate, and he used that with Abraham asking his people to stay, and also in Abraham and Lot when they went their separate ways. And sometimes people can be in our life for a season, as was mentioned, but sometimes this is why it's so imperative that our relationship with God be the most important relationship, because if that's it, He'll be able to direct us towards those people that maybe they can go up one mountain, because their faith is there with us, but maybe they can't go up another mountain. For instance, maybe they can believe with you for a new job or pay some sort of financial situation that you're into, but maybe they can't hook up with you and go up the mountain of cancer or of some sort of health issue. And so knowing those people that can travel with you, that can go the extra mile, God will show you those people. And sometimes seems like isolated. And God does that for a reason. If you look back, Daniel was isolated. There was times when David was isolated. There was times when obviously Moses felt isolated. You look through all of those, there was isolation, but then there was paramount relationships, not only with God, but also with others. Moses and Aaron, so we need to realize that just because there's a lonely time and a lonely season, and doesn't mean that those people that are going to walk the extra mile with us aren't right around the corner. It doesn't mean that God's not with us. And Job had his greatest time of isolation when his wife basically said, "Curse God and die." And his friends, interesting thing about his friends, if you look at the story in Job 4, it talks about his friends being very comforting and coming to him and walking a certain distance with him, if you will, and really knowing where they were at when they walked into the situation that Job was encountering when he was cursing basically the day of his birth. And they were doing their best to encourage him, and they did encourage him to a degree. But then it came to a point where it kind of turned, and they said, basically were saying to Job that you must have sinned somewhere. And so there was a point where I believe their relationship with God wasn't quite to that level. They did encourage, and they were there for Job to a certain degree. And so that goes along with that, how long can somebody walk with us, and yet us not get discouraged if we have to tell them, stay here. I need to go a little further. Jesus himself isolated himself to pray. There were many times when we see that he needed that time just with his relationship with God. So so we need to be diligent when we're walking with others. We need to understand the process, and we need to understand when others are to go, how far they're to go with us, and we need to encourage one another not to give up. And cast your net on the other side. Try one more time. And these were other things that Pastor echoed Sunday, is that we need to try one more time, try again. But we need to be those cheerleaders for others, that we're encouraging them to try again, to continue, to not give up. And it's important that our relationship with God is to the level by which we can encourage them in the right direction, right? So obviously, we want to make sure that we're giving them sound advice and sound encouragement. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight some things based upon Sunday's message, and I hope you enjoy, and looking forward to some questions for next week's service. So thank you very much.